Hello, welcome to How to Play Like a WoW Pro, episode number 26. Today I'm going to be showing you how to play steps from the south spawn in a medium tank. This can also work in some heavy tanks, and I'll talk a little bit about the map in general and about how you should play it from this side. So on this side of steps, I would recommend going west most of the time, or if you're a TD, camping in the base. Now, why do you not want to go east on steps from the south spawn? Well, the north spawn has a huge advantage on this flank because they can push up and they can push through this flank just fine until they get to here, in which case you have a huge advantage on the K line and they can't push through this part of the flank like this very easily. But they can push this part very easily because they have a TD spot right back here, which means that your team can't push through, but their team can push through. Because your TD spot is inferior. This spot right up here, it's hard to shoot this corner here without getting lit. So they can just push up, YOLO in, take this spot right here, and then play hull down on your guys that are playing in this area. And then they can push around the corner and kill these guys quite easily. So I wouldn't recommend going over here unless you're in something like a Kron or a Chieftain, or if your entire team goes to that flank. Otherwise, I wouldn't recommend it. Now, what should you do instead? Well, what I like to do is I like to come over to H1 and play that area. And I'll be showing you how to play that area effectively in a medium tank. Because there's a position that not many people know how to play correctly. And it can be an extremely strong position, especially if you have decent penetration. So I would go to this position in H1 in something like a CS63, a Bat Chat, a 140, a CS List, the Progetto also works. And so that's where I'm going to be going in this battle. But first I stopped to take a few shots at this Progetto because he's completely in the open for me. Now, once you get here, you ideally want to end up in this position right here, in these bushes. But it's not easy to get here whatsoever, especially if you're high profile, like if your tank is very tall. Because you can easily get lit getting to that position. But usually once you get to that position, it's very hard to get lit. Now this position is very nuanced. First of all, in order to get here, there's a lot of things have to be, you have to meet the right conditions in order to be able to get there, because otherwise you'll get spotted. And once you're there, you need to know what to look out for, because you could get spotted even once you're here if you don't know what to look out for. But before I'm getting to that position, I want to take a few pot shots at this Scorpion, because I know he's still in that bush. And I'm worried about getting lit through this gap here by him. So I want to back him off before I push in. And as you can see, I hit him once, so. But, where can you get lit going to this position? So ideally you want to take this route going all the way around, because if you take this short path here, then you get lit through this little gap right through these bushes right here, especially from tanks that are playing up high like this Basante is. If you take this wider route, it's more unlikely that you'll get lit. And the reason why this area is so finicky is the hitbox for this bush is really weird. So you can sometimes just get lit, and plus you're so close to them that sometimes you'll just get regardless when you shoot. So that's why I wouldn't recommend playing this position in something like a Chieftain, unless you think that you're not going to take much damage when you fire if you do happen to get lit. But if you manage to get here, then what you do is you just play in these bushes, staying behind them, and keeping these bushes in between you and the enemies, and then you can farm a lot of damage, especially if there's something like a Mouse or a Type 5 Heavy on the enemy team. You can just do a lot of damage, and so that's what I'm doing to this Tiger 2 here. I'm not lit, as you usually shouldn't be in this position, and that's what makes this position so strong. Now my team is starting to push up, so I'm thinking about pushing it myself, but I decided to stop at these bushes and use them as a double bush. I have this bush in between me and him as well, so it's unlikely I'll get spotted. What you need to watch out for though, or I guess what I should say is, When you're in a bush and you fire through it, even if you're not double bush, so you're not 15 meters behind it, the bush still retains around 1/3 of its camo, even when you fire, unless they've changed that, but I'm pretty sure that I've read the wiki and that's what the case is. So bushes, even when you're not double bushing, still give you some camo. So that's why you want to stay back in these bushes when you're firing generally, because even though they're not giving you double bush camo, they're giving you 1/3 of their camo value even when you're firing. And that's just enough to keep you unlit, because these bushes probably give you 50%, then these ones would give you like, what's the third of 50? Like 17.5% or so. And so that gives you like 60% camo, and then you have like a tiny bit of camo left over from after you fire, maybe like 3 or 4%. And so you can get up to like 70% camo, and then if you're like 230 meters away, then they won't light you. But since we pushed through, I decided to push up. And that was the main point of this video, is just to show you that position in particular. The rest of this video is mostly just me farming. There's not really too much to talk about here. The enemy, as you can see, they push through this flank, as happens probably 70% of the time or 80% of the time. But then they get stuck here, because it's really hard to push through this because you're in a crossfire from the K-line, from tanks here, and from tanks here. So it's okay to push through this flank when you're on the other spawn. I do it all the time. But when you push through, after you kill this area here, you need to like fall back unless your team has a lot of tanks here and you think you can push through. But they were unable to do so. And this spot is very good. Like, if the enemy has a lot of tanks just sitting in here, you might be the only tank that has actual penning shots on them, because the rest of your team is probably playing on this corner here, and they're just spotting them, but they're not actually doing damage. Another thing that I should mention actually is, if you poke on this corner right here, especially with something with armor, you can counter this position up here, because you're mostly hull down, so I should mention that as well. Those were not great shots. But in the beginning, I farmed 2,000 free damage from that position, so it's a very good position to know about. Here, I don't want to waste my last shot on this guy really, because he's only 5 HP, and I want to be loaded for when I engage the next opponents. I decided to just take those shots and take the reload loss, because I think in general in the Progetto, because your reload really isn't that bad and the reload penalty isn't that great for shooting your shots, it's usually better just to get out your shots than to hold them in general. Like, as you can see, I'm basically already fully reloaded, even though I've completely unloaded my clip. In the Progetto 60, in the tier 10 Progetto, it's a little bit different. You generally don't want to completely unload, because the reload penalty for unloading all of your shots is pretty huge. But here I'm just trying to maximize my damage, so I'm going for full HP shots. Now there, what you saw me do, I didn't aim at this guy direct, like immediately. I waited for me to be mostly loaded, and then I turned and looked at him, because I didn't want him to back off, seeing that I was aiming at him. So yeah, let me show you the endgame stats real quick. I uploaded this to Wall Replays. As you can see, I did 4,800 damage, so I had 2 blind shots, one on the Scorpion and one on, I'm not even sure who, to be honest. Probably, I don't even know, really. I was firing full AP, so I made a lot of credits, 180,000. I had a clan booster and a reserve running, so pretty good battle. But yeah, I just wanted to show you that position really. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.